everybody. And today we are interviewing somebody who's really awesome. We met him through our mastermind group, CLA. His name's David. Suzanne and I actually had a fantastic conversation with him because he does things a little bit differently. He takes, I think, the whole person as a whole, really helps them achieve their dreams. And he's just a really unique individual. And honestly, somebody who, to me, is very full of life and energy and just I don't know, just pure happiness. Like I feel like you just really love what you do, and I absolutely love that about you. But today, guys, don't forget, we always do a freebie at the end of the interview, so do not go anywhere until the end of the interview. We're going to drop that keyword that you have to know, because David is going to give you guys an awesome freebie. But before we get to that, obviously, I want you to explain to our audience a little bit more about who you are, what you do, what you're passionate about, because honestly, we love you and we want everybody else to see how awesome of a person that you are. So thank you for coming, David.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate the opportunity. And I mean, you could call me Uncle Dave, right? It's a nickname. It's not when I first got that nickname, people were like, oh, I don't know if that's gonna stick because, uncles and this. I'm like, no, I'm not that a type of uncle. That's not what I'm talking about. How it came from is from my mental wellness background. I was a recovery coach. I was licensed to recovery, so I just let the license go. I still do some of that work. I just don't try to get into the recovery centers. But what I do is I want everybody to be the best that they can be, rising themselves to those levels. As my book says, when your heart says it's your time to soar, when you really take it to that next level. And what that level looks for you. Is it speaking on stages? Yeah, I'm a TEDx speaker, DTM in Toastmasters, highest level in Toastmasters. So like I can help people speak. And that's what I do now is align your message, because my background just comes weird. I have 30 years corporate experience, highest levels. I worked for, Fortune 50 companies where I ran $100 million budgets. So it was, I have just a bunch of different experiences, but I love helping people get their message out. And you have to do that first through mental wellness. We were talking about before, right? A lot of times why we can't do it is because of those limiting beliefs. And once we overcome those limiting beliefs, then we want to align our message. I mean, that's so huge, and have our own book. I'm definitely one of those guys who don't talk about compilation books because what does it do for you? If you can, yeah, Amazon #1 bestseller. That's good if you're looking for ego. And one of my nicknames used to be Kid Ego growing up. I was this loud, brash guy. I was a great bowler. I came in fifth in New York State. So it wasn't, and I was that guy that you're like, oh man, he's loud. I'm still loud. I'm just different now. I have a little more
Yeah.
self-awareness, so which is good, for sure, for sure. But
Yeah.
it's also I align people. I'm going to tell you the truth. That's why I'm that uncle that is going to, well, you can't tell mom and dad stuff, but you could talk to me about it and figure it out. I'm not, because I know how to handle the really tough conversations. I've been trained. I was licensed for that. And then also through my other experiences, I know how to do it. I have books. I've been an author. I've done podcasting. I know how to speak, get on stages. Even CLA, a couple of years ago when we had CLA Live, I jumped off a chair and the whole audience, right? Whoever was in the audience was like, holy shit. So it really is pushing that level and having that confidence within yourself. And so that's really what I do, and that's what I try to bring to everybody that's around me.
No, I love that. I absolutely love that. I actually, I was thinking about that when you said the chair thing. It reminds me of a philosophy professor I had that mimicked, the Robin Williams like scene from Dead Poet Society. Like the
Mhm.
first time we ever met him, he jumped up on the desk. But that is the thing. It's like it's about fully expressing, I think, who you are authentically, which is, a big component of why Suzanne and I really, really related to you, is because we do the very similar things in the sense of, how they construct the business, bringing that authentic presence out. But for you, it's like, yeah, where's the message? What's going on? And, giving them that confidence and that reassurance and that space to talk about some of the harder things that maybe you've been not wanting to talk about for a little while, but then being able to then get the message out. And I do think that there is something to the full book, right? Like I've been a part of anthology books. I think a lot of people have.
Me
Um,
too.
and yeah, and it's a thing, and it really does promote the person who's running the anthology book, and we understand that. And I think too, I think it's about the intention that you're going into the anthology with, because for me, it was more like, cool, like if I can support somebody else kind of like trying to get their dreams together, I'm honestly okay with it. I didn't go into it going like, oh, I'm going to make my big break off of the anthology book, right? But I think a lot of people don't have that thought process, and so that's what
Correct.
gives them that disappointment at the end of the day, you know what I mean? And for me it's more just like, cool, it gives me a little bit of practice to like kind of come up with maybe like a talk or like a thing that maybe resonates with people, or
Right.
kind of, and then help somebody else, right? Whereas like somebody else really wanting that, like, I want my voice to shine, I want me to come forward, is you have to write your own, like you have to do that. And I think that that is very intimidating for a lot of people to think about. It's like, I got to write my own 200-page book, like that's a lot.
Well, and the thing is, you don't have to write a 200 page. So that's what one of the things that I teach is like, okay, if you can write 1,500 words, can you do it 10 times? And well, I can't. I go, yeah, you can. Sit with me for an hour. I mean, that's what I do is I sit and I hold your hand or I ghostwrite it. There's a lot of ways to get it. And again, I've been in the compilation book, so I'm not trying to just say, oh, I've never done it. I've done it and I've seen that even when you're on with the big names, right? That used to be the whole thing with the compilation books, right? You'd be in the book with, Les Brown, Tony Robbins, I mean, some of the biggest guys in the industry. Yeah. And then now we have everybody and their grandmother does it. And it is building their brand. I don't blame them for doing it, right? Hey, if somebody wants to give me money to build my brand, great. But I want to make sure that everybody's educated about that. You can make that choice, right? A lot of the things that I've gone through in life, I've said, oh, I didn't know at that time. But once you know, you can't unknow. You get to make different choices, you get to make different decisions. That's okay. Like if you just want to go, like you said, support a friend, 100%. Tell me why it's worth between three and $5,000 to be in that book. Give me a
Yeah.
reason for that. Fine. If it's just to support your background and your life, no. There's nobody supporting me. Like that's it. It's reciprocal. Okay, then let me have my book, and that even doesn't work for me because I'm not trying to. I want to pass out messages that really move forward. How many people read even their own chapter in those compilation books? They don't mind those pictures. They don't mind all the glory. And who doesn't like going to a party? I love going to parties. But let's not have a party. Let's start creating impact when you walk into a room.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. And I think too, it also gives you, so we were talking about this the other day, my Suzanne and I. We were talking about this the other day, and we were talking about how some of the stuff that's ego driven, right? Like when you're doing name dropping, or I'm in this book or I'm in that book or whatever, and it's like that to me is a signal that you're not really believing in your own stuff, that you feel like you have to kind of ride the coattails of somebody else. And I think that there's nothing wrong. I want to preface this with like, if somebody is kind of catching themselves, like watching this going like, oh gosh, I do that. There's nothing really, like, it's not that it's bad. It's just that it's a warning sign of like, where are you not stepping into your own authority in yourself to do that, right? This is like a self-reflection thing, right? Because the thing is,
100%.
is like we have to be able to do that. We have to be able to acknowledge that ourselves, right? And so I think that when you're talking about like you want to get people's messages out there, like with the books, or because I think everybody in life deserves to be heard in the way that they want to be, right?
100%.
So it's either from a stage or a book or just in a phone conversation, right? Like people having the authority. And I say that because some people don't want to be anywhere near a stage, like,
Yeah.
so I get that. But it even like if you're in a business partnership and you feel like you're not being heard, right? Or if you and you're like the behind the scenes person, but you feel like you have something to contribute to the person who is running the organization and you're not being heard, it's like it's the same things, right? So and that could be your proverbial stage, right? Because a lot of people do stop themselves from even having those challenging conversations one to one, right? And so I think that this is something that is really cool for you, of like, you really see that, you see that where that barrier is when they're relying too much on like the name dropping or the anthology book or writing somebody else's coattails. And we had the conversation before we started of like, nobody really wants to work on the mental health, and we understand that because it can be a stigma,
Hard, man.
but it
It's
gets you
hard.
where you need to go, right?
Yeah, it is so hard. I mean, one of the lines I've used at speeches, and I've used it plenty of times afterwards, is, the monsters in our head are much worse than the monsters we ever thought about under the bed. And, it's hard to do that work. It's hard, and that's why people are so disappointed in the coaching industry, right? They all have great ideas. I don't know that I've met many people who don't have the heart for it, who don't have a vision of what they want to do, but they're following somebody else's vision, and they're surprised that, well, but I'm an Amazon bestseller. For an hour, they sold 200 books. Let's be honest, and that doesn't mean that you shouldn't be proud of that, right? I'm not telling people not to be proud of that. I'm not trying to throw shade on it. I've been that. I've done that. But what value? Again, when a leader, when I go a leader, you walk into a room, but also when you walk out of a room, they still talk about you, and in a good way. They're not just going, "Oh, that guy is," right? Even when I walk around with my bat, they're like, "Oh, that's the guy with the bat." I'm like, "Okay, well, what's the meaning for the bat?" The bat is not about being tough guy, because anybody who really knows me knows I'm not a tough guy. I could talk like a tough guy, but I don't act like a tough guy. And the bat is about bringing awesome thoughts. So did I bring an awesome thought? Am I authentic, right? Being authentic today, another meaning for the bat. No matter what you think about me, I'm authentic, and you might not find anybody like me again.
No, I
Uh,
love that about you. Like, no, that when even had that discussion, you're very just like upfront. This is what I'm doing, and that's why we really loved having those conversations with you, like Suzanne and I, because we're very much aligned in that space, right? Like we call people out on the stuff that they need to be called out on, and I think you do the same thing. We do it lovingly, supportive. It's not like we're throwing somebody under the bus, and you're not either. You're like literally just showing them where the work still needs to be done, and I think that's the key, because it's not about, and I think, and I want to share this because I feel like there's a lot of people still struggling, going like, I was working on this stuff, I was doing all the things, I thought I fixed this and all this other stuff, and I'm like, guys, like, there is no end to personal development. Okay, there is zero finish line until you're in the ground,
in
right?
a
Like,
box. Yep.
there is no finish line. And so if you find yourself revisiting something, it's not that you failed, it's the fact that like you still have to revisit some things. And sometimes it's because like you did the like, I always do the onion, like the Shrek, ogres
Yep.
are like onions, but it's like you got the first layer off, great. That means that now, but now you're seeing something deeper, and now you're seeing something deeper. And so instead of looking at like, oh, I'm still dealing with this stuff, it's like, okay, well, what did you realize now that you didn't realize the first time you went through this, right? Or how fast did you now get through that thing? Because
Right.
now, like the other day, like I was actually talking to Suzanne about something that I was struggling with. And she was like, wow, you got through that really quick. I was like, I know, I've been working on it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And so it's like, sometimes I just need somebody to listen while I'm processing. Right. And she understands that. And she is one of those people for me. And I love that about her. But it's like, it's getting to me faster and faster and faster, right? Versus like, oh my gosh, it took like 2 weeks to figure this out, right? So I think that with people, it's like, you are an authentic person. I love the bat thing. I didn't know about bat. I'm
Yeah.
like, that's really cool. But all I kept picturing when you said something about the bat was that person from Walking Dead, with the big
Yeah. Well, I have one of those with the spike and everything like that, just for pictures. But
like, kill the
yeah,
zombies.
yeah, and what's funny is, as you were mentioning about perspective, that that's been really interesting. So I don't know if anybody believes in your audience believes in the metaphysical, right? When you die, you can still mediumship and things like that. So I had a best friend who died and didn't believe in any of this stuff. And of course, I went to a medium. I believe in that. I was a medium for a little while and scared the hell out of me. But so he came through, right? So he comes through, and I go, all right, let me see if this guy's real, the medium. And I go, okay, you didn't believe this before. Why are you coming through to me now? And my friend allegedly said, right? He was like, yeah, but now I see differently. He now sees from the other side,
Yeah.
unfortunately. And that is a great way to learn, right? Mental wellness, man, I got this. So many people in our society talk about, I got this, right? We have that ICTA disease I talk about all the time. I know that already. ICTA.
Mhm.
I love acronyms. But the real answer is until you really start experiencing it. That's why you can learn. And sometimes we speak too quickly. I still speak too quickly at times, and I'm like, oh, I shouldn't have said that. And then I become a man, and I go, all right, I said something wrong, and I'll apologize for the idea of being wrong. Like that doesn't mean I'm throwing shade on anybody, but it does mean that I own my level, right? Every level we get, you get that much more clarity. Again, like my friend, he didn't believe any of that stuff before, but now he's on the other side. He sees it differently. Think about
Yeah.
when you start on your mental wellness journey or even writing a book. You start off with a compilation. Great. 1,500 pages. You don't need to be in 15 other books that are going to get you a similar story or another story. Let's go get out there and push yourself. What would you love to push yourself out? I love having that conversation when I get into speaking with people about writing books or getting on stages. And some people go, I don't have enough stories. I'm like, oh, you probably do. Let's go sit down and
Yeah.
figure that out. And that's one of the things I'm like, in an hour, I could probably pull out three stories that we would have about you. And that's where you then build upon those things, by asking the right questions. That's
Yeah.
always going to be the biggest answers is not only what happens, but asking the right questions of yourself, if you're self-healing, and if you're not, find those safe people.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. And it's like, I still have a spiritual coach that I work with. Suzanne does too. And I don't want anybody thinking like we don't do, I mean, we provide that space for people, but we still work on ourselves. It's not about the fact that like if you are working with somebody that isn't still working on themselves in some kind of capacity, then those probably are not the right people for you. Because if you already think like, oh, you're done, you're not done. Like, so like that's something that we practice and we preach. Sometimes we're in the, like transitioning from one coach to another, or sometimes we're, just kind of doing our own thing, but we're always still in that eternal practice of like, what can I expand on? And I also think that I love what you said about like, what is this, like, what are stories that you can, what do you think people might want to know from you? Or like, what are the stories that you could tell? And then people is like, I don't have any stories. People have a ton of stories. I think the
Yeah.
biggest thing is you think that nobody wants to hear your story, and that's the difference. And I think that there's so many stories that people can relate to, just common people. And I do feel like, even though I'm not one of those people that are avidly posting or anything, but TikTok kind of showed us that. Like TikTok is like the short form consumer type thing, but it's like over COVID when everybody was just sharing their stories, right? Sharing like what was going on in their life. Everybody was like eating it up. And the thing is like it's that commonality of, if you are brave enough to share your story, because not everybody's going to, and that's not also everybody's destiny, right? Not everybody's
Right.
supposed to. But if you feel like that is one of the things you're called to do, don't be scared to share it, because more than likely, if you feel like you're being called to do it and to have those conversations honestly, especially with somebody like David, who I feel like would probably very authentically, one, support and hear your story so that you can actually like articulate it and give it space to breathe, and then be able to help you format it in a way that is exactly aligned with who you are. I think that that is some place that you need to start to look, because it's not about the fact that nobody wants to hear your story, because people probably do if you feel called to do that. It's about who needs to hear it right now. Like, there's, even if it's one person that can relate to what you're going through. If you're like, well, everybody's, I think about the people that have gone through traumatic events, and it's like, so many like, nobody thinks that's special because other people have gone through it too, or whatever. And it's like, no, like, yes, people have gone through traumatic, so many people have gone through traumatic events. However, not everybody feels called to tell the story. And that means that when you do feel called to tell the story, how could that improve somebody else's life? And I think that that's the thing that people need to know. It doesn't have to be something traumatic either. It could be something that they learned, or something like really amazing in their life that they want to share, that goes, oh my gosh, if they can do that, I can do it too. And it can inspire other people. So when I feel like when you're trying to share somebody's story or like your own story, it's about like, okay, well, how can I show up for me first, and like, what does this mean for me to share my story, and then how can I impact other people and encourage them to keep doing this, like to continue that work. Because I know that when I've read personal development books or people's stories, I get more out of those than I do like this, the strategy based books or the like,
Right.
any of that, because I get more inspired and more motivated by people's honest stuff, and I think that that's what's been missing in the world lately, is just the authenticity and the vulnerability of people. And I think you are one of those people that is capable of holding that space for people to understand where they're coming from, and then to, like, I would say, very in a caring and loving way, put it together so that they can feel seen, heard, and understood even in their own work, which I think is awesome,
Yeah.
and that's what I get from you, you know what I mean, as a person.
Well, thank you. That's exactly what I do. So, part of my process is not only telling you a story, so I can give you an example. And I think that's what we need is examples, not just, man, this happened to me and now I'm here, so you could do it. Like, okay, you did a lot of things in between, right? You found, whatever you did, yoga, whatever worked for you is part of your story. So I was once mentoring these high school kids, just getting their resumes. And so the girl's like, I don't do anything. I babysit my sister when I come home, and I help out at church on Sunday. That's all my parents let me do. I go, okay, I heard that differently. I go, you're responsible enough to watch younger children, and then at church, you're community based, right? So you're looking at helping others. And she didn't see it that way. So there's a lot of ways that we don't recognize
Yeah.
to do those things. And that's that Uncle Daveness. So how I got the nickname Uncle Dave, being the recovery coach, we went up to, the New York State Senate and, to argue to get more funding for recovery disease. And you get into a senator's office. They all tell, and there was a lot of moms around there who unfortunately lost their child. So one told the story, one told the story, one told the story. After a while, senators don't care. They just like, okay, white noise. Thank you very much. Well, but Uncle Dave was in the room, and I wasn't Uncle Dave at that moment. I was just Dave, and I said, "Whoa, whoa, whoa! We need to refocus this meeting." Now, the woman who was talking, I interrupted 100%, and I said, "I'll hear your story afterwards." Exactly like you said, I'll give you that safe space, but we're going to lose time with this gentleman. He's already out the door. And he looked at me and I was like, we need your money. I go, you're in charge of the funding, the budgets, and everything that goes down. That's what we need. You don't want to remember that. That's fine. You're going to all put all these other stories in there. That's why you show the pictures of the needle and the spoon. Stop showing those things. There's a lot more. There's a lot more people where I come from. I grow up I didn't grow up, but I live in Massapequa. Number one, it used to be the number one overdose death place in the world. It's a white collar neighborhood. There's blue collar, there's regular people. It was the pills that were killing people.
Yeah.
It wasn't the needles and the spoons and all that stuff. Yeah, there might have been some of that as well. That's the story that we need to make sure we talk when we advocate for ourselves and learn what we need to do to move it forward. It's not just telling your story. What have I done to then move things forward? That's what you want to do. I want to hear your story of being in the ashes when I talk about being a phoenix. But how did you get up? The story of the phoenix, a lot of people think that the phoenix dies. The phoenix does not die. It turns to ashes, which that's why they assume that. But it's a spark of God who then reignites us. And I always question everybody, do you feel you have a spark of God or the universe or whatever that means to you? And nobody's ever told me no. They just didn't see it, including myself. So I understand that. When I attempted suicide uh, years ago, and then the first question somebody asked me was, do you love yourself? I didn't even know that was an option. And I've said
Yeah.
that many times. Now I can tell you I love myself. I don't always like myself every day. I don't like everything I do. I make mistakes. I'll beat myself up just like anybody else, but I won't hold on to it, and it won't be a jacket for me to wear in the street. I'll take it off and call it out and do all those things. That's growth, and that's where the story goes. And that's why, even if you don't want to speak on a stage, you don't want a book, if you have a business, you want your branding. That's where all of my branding comes into together. And I have a process to do that. I walk you through something completely different. The things that you just mentioned about me, about that safe space, about that knowing. those were among my top 5 characteristics that I when I sit with somebody, when I did the process for myself, I was like, that's what I want people to know. They don't have to like what I say. That's okay. That's a personal choice. But are they going to think that I don't care or that my heart, I don't have a, heart centered? No, they're not going to do that. They're going to know that everything I say, I mean. Some of the things I might want to refrain or, reposition the way I say things.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. And I think that shines through in a lot of ways. And and I think too, well, also with the heart centeredness, obviously, like you are doing a freebie for them. And so I'd absolutely love for you to explain that to them, because I feel like if after this interview, if you guys have connected at all with what David is saying, and you're like, I have a message that I want to get out there and I haven't been able to find the right person to do that, then obviously you want to connect with him. So I want to give him a chance to explain what the freebie is and also the keyword to drop so that he can reach out to you personally and get you on his calendar for that too. So what do you got for him?
Well, I got an hour of my time. I think that's
Awesome.
really valuable. Uh, time we can make as much money, no matter how much you've lost, you can make it, but you can't get back time. And in that hour, I get to sit down with you. So, depending on what you want to work with, what your goals are, I don't know what everybody's goals are. Everybody has a different reason, and some people might not have even thought their goals. So
Mm-hmm.
I sit down and we figure out what your goals are and how to go get them. And at the end of that hour, I eventually then go back to my little lab, and I'll give you like a little roadmap. And I'll send it to you, and we either go forward if you want to work with me. If you don't, it's okay. Being a pathfinder is so important, and that's the key word is a pathfinder for you. Ram Dass. If you don't know who Ram Dass is, check him out. Great, metaphysical person. He said we all walk each other home, and I came out with a comic book called The Pathfinder. We're all walking the same road, but each one of us is different on our road. And sometimes we can give advice, and sometimes we know how to get the obstacles because we've already overcome those obstacles. Now, other obstacles might come up, but knowing how to get through those obstacles, that is a real Pathfinder moment. And that's really what I want everybody to do is understand, sit with me for an hour. I'm willing to give you an hour and then figure out if I'm the guy that can help you out. If not, I still give you the roadmap either way, and then you can go on your road yourself.
Awesome. Yeah, everybody. So comment Pathfinder if you want to get on his calendar, which I highly recommend. The nice part with Dave is that it's not stress. It's not stressful. It's just a conversation. And the nice part is I feel like you're gonna leave with something, right? You're gonna leave with something regardless of if you end up working with him or not. And the nice part is maybe it's just a nugget of information that inspires you to maybe in a few months, really start to share your story. And I think that that's huge. And then he's just an authentic human being. We love having him. Thank you so much for having a conversation with
Thank
us.
you.
I love the message that you have. I love the authenticity that you bring. And remember, guys, comment Pathfinder, get on his calendar. Like this is stuff that, a lot of people come in here and give us freebies. And not a lot of people give an hour of their time. And I think that that is the most valuable asset that we can give to people. So make sure you comment that word, get on his calendar, spend some time with him, really get to know him and see how it can transform your life. So thank you again, David. And
Thank you.
I just absolutely have loved our conversation. So thank you.
Thank you so much.